Survivor Specialist John and McKenna are back, and we are rewinding this episode 4 of Survivor 45. John, we are flashing back to, I guess, episode 1 of this current season. That's where we're rewinding to. Not some other episodes in the past.
Not the episode I really want to rewind back to, but here we are. Somehow in this season that everyone's been praising, everyone has felt wonderful about the extra runtime, about all the camp life, about knowing all these characters. We're 4 episodes in and we have 2 quits.
Half the boots have been quits.
Wild. Just absolutely unfathomable that I'm sitting here thinking, man, season 45 is still, despite these 2 quits, delivering on every other aspect.
Mm-hmm. What did you say last night? Because I was like, why am I still liking this season and half the boots are quits?
It's like the season is balancing between being incredibly satisfying and incredibly disappointing at the exact same time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know what it is, but because of that, like, there's a big chunk of this episode we kind of just have already rewound 3 episodes ago.
Exactly. So let's get into the things we did not, and that is the swap. We have a actual swap back. They tested the waters last season with the 1-person swap, but now we get an official drop your buffs and a tray of buffs to randomly pick your tribes.
When Jeff says the words, drop your buffs, we're switching things up, like, I actually started crying. Which seems absurd, but like it's actually just I had such a visceral response to it because it's a moment that we've been robbed of for a while now. We haven't had a swap since Winners at War. Yep. Whatever we call last season, it wasn't a swap. We pretended it was a swap because it was the closest thing we've had in many seasons, but it wasn't. And to have those moments, it just felt like this was one of those integral parts of Survivor that was missing. And we've talked about it before this season with things like Ancient Voices, like these little tiny things that are just coming back this season that makes it feel more like Survivor. And the swap's just one of those things.
Yeah, exactly. So there are different mechanics on how Survivor does the swap. So like the first one was Africa, who wants to go on a quest, and 3 people from each tribe went on a quest and it swapped. You have, the schoolyard pick from Vanuatu, or just like a generic schoolyard pick. And then you have these, pick from a tray of buffs, where this didn't happen, truly didn't happen until Karamoan. Shocking.
It's so strange because I think this is kind of the prototypical thing you think of when you think of as a tribe swap. But as we went through every single season last night, recalling how these swaps happen, it's fascinating how many of them are schoolyard picks or are, rank your tribes, like the Gabon swap.
They're all like these like random kind of divides. Now we have some things that are very similar to this pick your buff off the tray. So like Marquesas, go stand on a wooden disc and that randomizes it. All Stars, pick a buff from this vase is close. And then One World, they smashed an egg on their, oh wait.
Yep.
Karamoan was also, I scratched that. Karamoan was also the egg.
Yeah, both One World and Karamoan had the egg smash, which shows you what color tribe you're on.
Exactly. And then Blood versus Water is the first covered buff. But this is what we equate to the classic Survivor swap. And it's mainly because it's the most recent Survivor swap. And what they have been continuing to do from Blood versus Water to Winners at War is a covered buff. Yeah. Now, in Millennials versus Gen X, we get introduced to 2 trays, 1 for men, 1 for women. And I believe that was also in, and then Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, we see like this season, it was 5 people, 3 tribes. Still, they kept the 3 tribes. A lot of times it's an expansion swap, so 2 tribes to 3, or they keep swapping, keep the 2 tribes.
Or in the other seasons that started with 3 tribes, we saw amalgamations of tribes, right? The dissolves of tribes where we went from 3 tribes down to 2. Heck, in Cambodia, we had both an expansion and a dissolve.
Yes, exactly. John, what is your favorite swap technique, I guess?
Technique? I still really like the Amazon swap. I think it's kind of one of the more unique ones where you had 2 people, 1 person from each tribe, and they went off and they spend the night together. They got to tell each other the tribal dynamics and everything. And then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, now you're picking new tribes, where it's essentially a schoolyard pick again. But it's just, it had this fallacy attached to it of this idea that, like, you know, you were making friends with this person, but instead you're actually going to be competing head to head, trying to figure out exactly how to structure the tribes. What about you, McKenna?
I love the Vanuatu swap. We out here on the Specialists love Vanuatu and praise Vanuatu because it is a great season. If you haven't watched in a while, give it a watch. But I like they're on their beaches, pick a leader, because they had just done like a collar challenge. They've done like things to dissuade them from thinking of a swap. Plus it's an early season. And then they get to the beach and it's like, all right, one of you is going to be dividing the tribes. One of you gets to pick what tribe you're on. And then you have the one person left over gets to pick. So now there's those dynamics added to it where it's like, you didn't choose to be on my tribe. Why? So I think the social dynamics of that one where it's like, you don't really get too much heat for picking the tribes, but then all the power of choosing your tribe. And then you have the one person who has to be like, all right, I'm not choosing you guys.
I'd be remiss not to mention the Fiji swap at this point too, where again, it's just like a schoolyard pick, but they have an odd number of people for the 2 tribes they're making, and Lisi doesn't get picked. And she celebrates thinking she's out of the game when actually she's going to Exile Island. It is so funny. It is just a moment that is so comical and so perfect, especially because it's Lisi who's doing it. It could only come in this situation.
Yeah.
I always remember that moment.
They did it in Panama. I mean, granted, not everybody's watching the shows. A lot of those earlier seasons are recruits, but like Panama, they did the same thing, and Bruce went over to exile Lisi. You're not out of the game, especially if Exile Island is in play.
Yeah. But you know what? It's okay because it gave us entertainment gold.
I know. Lisi is the worst, but also the best.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so let's move on from these swaps over to Lulu. So Bruce is a new Lulu member, and he hits Lulu Beach and starts crying because this was actually his beach that he left on last season. And so that got me thinking, it kind of felt like Winners at War, where all the new school players who have been on the Fijian beaches are like, oh yeah, I know this island, and had that upper hand. So not saying that Bruce has the upper hand to find idols because he was there for 3 seconds, but you know, just knowing that, oh my gosh, this is somewhere I've been.
Yeah, and it's something that we don't really get. Like, we've had returning, like, reused locations in Survivor before. Some people might not realize that, but things like Heroes versus Villains was filmed in Samoa, right? Or there were several seasons filmed in Philippines right after another, and we had a few in in
so
like
many
the San Juan del Sur in Nicaragua area, right? Like,
so many of those places are in the South Pacific.
Yeah. And but like they've been, a little varied. That the tribe
Mhm.
beaches were a little different for
Right.
those
Different
seasons.
islands,
Whereas we're at a point now where we're on season 45. They have been in Fiji since 33. This is the 12th season they've been filming there.
Mhm.
I know a lot of viewers will say, yeah, I recognize these beaches. I can tell you what tribes have been on which of these beaches based on,
Power to them.
yeah, well, but it's because they only slightly alternate
Mhm.
between these beaches, right? Um, but because of that, we don't really have a lot of these moments like this moment last night with Bruce. We
Mhm.
don't have these moments where it's someone looking back at where they lost the game the
Yeah.
last time they played. Like you said, we have the Winners at War returnees, and we have the Millennial versus Gen X returnees in Game Changers.
Yep.
And other than that, you
That's right.
have David Wright in
Oh,
Edge of
David Wright.
Extinction. That's
Mhm.
it. Those are the only people who have returned to the same
Area.
to these Fijian areas again where they're
Mhm.
doing these camps.
Mhm. Yeah, it's crazy and just like a huge advantage or would have been for Bruce had he not been like medevaced with, no time in the game really. But moving on from sad Bruce because he gets his emotions out and pops up and is happy Uncle Bruce again. We're going to head over to Bello, and this is where Emily is in the swing position, and that is all we hear about. Emily's the
Yeah.
swing, Emily's the swing.
It's so interesting with the swing position because there are two ways of approaching it essentially, right? You can approach it as we need to get this person because that gives us numbers over the opposing tribe who have the same numbers of us, or you unite with that opposing tribe that has the same numbers, take out that person. But
Mhm.
that's riskier because then you're even, and
Yeah.
it makes ties much more likely.
What's interesting about this swap is they're at 5. So,
Hmm.
I mean, we're gonna go a little Culpepper math here. So, like, typically, if there was like 6, you split the like or whatever, you split the middle with someone, and then you can just
Hmm.
vote them out next. But with the 5, you'd still be like you have to keep them with you for that next vote as well, because if they just go to the other person, you're still 2-2. So, like, Emily's in a really good position because she can split the tie, and then she's safe because otherwise there's another tie.
Well, she would be if not for this exact situation where Drew and Austin can simultaneously be safe from a vote because of the advantages they have.
Yeah, well, but let's
But
go to
that changes the way you have to look at this, right?
True.
It's not the same as these other people who have been like the single person on their tribe at a swap. It's not
Mhm.
like Sarah and Kagayan, where she is stuck between 3 beauty, 3 brains, and has to figure out which side to go with, right? It's not like what was it? The Manu tribe in Edge of Extinction,
Like Wendy.
where it's 4 on Wendy, right? Like it's not the same situation because these advantages, and this season we haven't really talked about how the advantages are impacting the game. This is one of the situations where it makes sense for Austin and Drew to pick up Emily because they can, no matter what happens, they can guarantee their safety afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then, we have Rourke on Healers Hustlers. She was splitting the middle on her tribe. Winner Worlds Apart. Joe Anglam is the lone no
Mhm.
collar. Kelly Remington, the lone blue collar on her tribe.
Their
So
respective tribes, yeah.
like it's crazy. And so we also come to the episode that we're watching for the Patreon, and it's season 27, Blood versus Water, episode 6, One Man Wrecking Ball, where we have, Sierra is the lone girl, but she does have
Mhm.
some people from her previous tribe. You have Vetus, the lone man, and kind of on the outs because Katie has her mother. even though he has someone from his previous tribe. Like, that really puts him in, like, you know, that outside perspective person as well.
And it's really interesting because I think this new era of Survivor has really, because we have the smaller tribes, it really emphasizes that tribe strong at a swap. But also, we haven't had swaps. We don't know how people are playing these swaps now. Do I think it's going to stay tribe strong for very long in the future, in like future seasons when they do this? Probably not. Eventually, people are going to be like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. But when it's day 9, you're just going to stick with who you're familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. It's the smartest thing to do. So now we have this Reba dynamic here where Sean is the lone person with 4 other people, and they are trying to, you know, dance Sifu around Sean and be like, you know, maybe there's like this like other person that could go and not you. And so going back to, you know, Manu from Edge of Extinction, Sean is kind of like Wendy here, where, you know, she doesn't go home, and Aubrey is like Sifu, where this is the plan: get out the big threat, the person that could help us, and, you know, they last that extra vote.
It's that point that Phil always makes when we get to this point in the game, where tribes that don't go to tribal council like trimming something, whether it be like, and most of the time it's just whoever's irritating them the most. Even if we look at Blood versus Water, that episode we're talking about, where Kat's just so bugged by Monica overthinking all the time. Right. And it's just that idea of like, it's almost like an anticipation you get to vote people out. And that's why a lot of the time people talking about Survivor say there's an advantage to going to tribal council early, because it gets you into game mode and it gets you out of those rash decisions that might not work out in the end.
Yeah. So also on Reba, we get the classic Survivor bag go through. And since we have 90-minute episodes, we get a little bit more time with this. We get to know that they're learning how to tie the knot on the front of Sean's bag. We get to learn that they are examining the exact order of how his stuff is in the bag. And this was like surprisingly hard to look up and Google. So we were doing our best from memory. So if any of you have other bag go throughs, please let us know. But one of the earlier ones is Fiji.
Yeah, this is Mookie and Alex trying to figure out if Yao Ming has the hidden immunity idol. Of course, they get through there, and then they try to blackmail Yao Ming with that information. Be like, hey, we know you have the idol. We're going to tell everyone. So then Yao Ming admits he has the idol, and it just looks really, really bad for Alex and Mookie.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have China with Jamie and PG going through James's bag, and that's how Jamie decides to play, you know, the wrong half of the archway.
Yeah, it's actually just Jamie, because PG's gone at this point. But
no,
it's post merge. Because it's the episode that Jamie goes home, because she actually looks in James's bag, but she doesn't look closely enough, which is really funny in contrast to
PG places 5th.
Oh, you're right. I'm just thinking weird right now.
Maybe it was just Jamie in the shot, but
I think it's just Jamie who goes through the bag. But the point being is that Jamie goes through the bag but doesn't do it thoroughly, which is in contrast to what we're seeing from Julie and Dee and Sifu as they're going through Sean's bag, where they're being so meticulous with it. Jamie kind of glances in, sees these wooden planks, but doesn't take enough time to investigate them and read them to realize that they say that they're an idol on it, which leads her to playing the other plaque as an idol herself.
Exactly. And it doesn't work. then how could we not talk about the Cambodia bag go through, again involving PG, but this time it's her bag being gone through by Abby Maria trying to find her bracelet.
The funniest thing about this is the one that has nothing to do with advantages, as like it's just Abby's paranoia, which is wonderful. I love Abby Maria. I think she's a fantastic character, and it gave us great TV moments. But this kind of leads me to believe, I think it's so common, as of the introduction of probably like the Fiji idol, so like the hidden immunity idol that we know as the hidden immunity idol now. Since then, I almost guarantee you, people go through people's bags a lot on this season. Now, I don't have confirmation of that. Maybe we'll get a future guest to confirm it, but I would be shocked if this doesn't happen at least once a season.
Yeah. I mean, we also have it happen in Edge of Extinction.
Mm-hmm. Ron and Julia going through Joe's bag to see if he has the idol or not, to know if they can blindside him, because that entire tribe just wanted to get the returning players out as fast as possible.
Yeah, exactly. But if you have Joe on your tribe, you'll always win. So you can't get him out until the merge.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back to Lulu here. And this is Katura's monologue about we got to get Bruce out because he is a threat. He is likable, yada, yada, yada. So that reminded me instantly of Blood versus Water, where Culpepper first appears. So go over the Patreon and listen to our Blood versus Water podcast tomorrow. And with Culpepper's like math, the editing is always like that, like, all right, if 2 becomes 5, if we have this, that, and it's just like keeps that like wipe of like time passing.
It's so interesting because this confessional from Katura, it's just fun. It's this editing technique where it just feels like you're shifting a little bit. Like nothing's changed. Katura is sitting in the exact same position, but the editors just kind of put like this, just a little bit of a sheen on it to make it seem like the passage of time is going.
Yeah.
Exactly the same way as they did in David versus Goliath, when Christian's telling all of his stories as he's in that fight against Alec for individual immunity.
Yeah, I love this editing technique so much because it's just hilarious with the making them seem like they're rambling on and rambling on. Like she could have talked for a minute and a half, but because of the way they edited it, it was like making her seem like she went on this like 10-minute rant about Bruce.
But I think this edit was so perfect for the survivor first we get from Katura later on in this episode.
Yes. With the no words confessional.
A no words confessional. Who thought that we would get this? But because we have, like, this isn't something that would happen in previous Survivor, because we don't have that buildup of the story for it to make sense, right? We don't have that moment where like someone can just Jim from The Office the camera and be like, see what I mean? But it's interlaced so perfectly that all we get is a head shake, and you know every single word Katura is saying.
Yes, exactly. So we'll pivot on over the challenge now. And we see a lot of this challenge everywhere. So the first part is swim to a cage and climb up and over it. Classic, challenge. But this time they are not carrying a snake over this cage. They're carrying the cage. And so the last time we saw this was Island of the Idols, where they have to carry the cage. And this is where Elaine was able to sneak that advantage in her pocket because it was hidden somewhere in their path. And I was surprised that they hadn't brought it back until now, because it's a fun part to this challenge. And it's like the make or break part of this challenge.
Is it fun? Is it fun, though?
I'm watching it on my couch. Yes, it's great.
Because it's just, I think it leads into the conversation that Julie's having with with D and J later in the episode, where without Sifu, that tribe was sunk there. And while I very much appreciate the physicality of these challenges and how that's necessary, when you're doing a random swap, having that first challenge be something that is so strength dependent and so skill dependent too, right? Like sinking threes, that's hard. That's not something everyone can do.
It's like, I know it's at a swap, but at the same point, it's like, all right, so if they do it the next challenge, Sifu's gone and they struggle. So it's like you never know what challenge is coming next, and that's the risk you have to take when voting someone out.
I think that having a challenge like this at the swamp kind of propagates the idea that you need to have strength throughout the entire tribal phase and doesn't allow for strong players to be voted out. Whereas if this challenge happens an episode earlier or even 2 episodes earlier, I think it's fine. It's so strength based. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things that just I
that's
question
like
how
you need on Survivor. Like you need a little bit of muscle, you need a little bit of brains, you need a little bit of everything to be able to do these challenges. Like there is an element of physicality to Survivor, and I feel like it really, I guess it really just impacts because they are a tribe of 5 and not a tribe of 7 where like we have 2 tribes of whatever. So like I think it's because we're still in 3 tribes that it's more of the issue, maybe not necessarily the placement, because there's room for maneuvering within more people and you don't have to keep that strength. But, Julie is right to a certain aspect where it's like, you do need to keep strength up because you never know what's around the corner. But at the same time, you never know when the merge is around the corner. So do you want to keep this person? Like, she also has a lot of wiggle room right now with the people she can vote out. She can vote out Sean, she can vote out Sifu, she can vote out Jay. Why not lose all 3? You don't care about these people.
Well, you still want numbers going into the merge, though. So ideally, you want to keep
but is Sifu her number? Is Jay her number? Like,
well, I mean that's the question. But like you mentioned the snake challenge earlier, and like that's how we usually see with these cages in the water. I think the snake is a lot easier because of how like long it is, just because of like how a cage is set up. It's harder for a single person to beast mode it out. And you kind of need multiple people because you need multiple points. Whereas like a snake, we've seen people literally be able to just go, yeah, I'm just going to haul this myself. Right. Yeah. Or even like a log. Like we've seen James in China, right? Where he can just like grab the log and make up for the fact that no one else can carry it.
I think they should have probably stopped the cage at the beach because I think it was mainly the incline from the ocean to the big sandy part of the beach. Because if you wanted them behind a cage shooting, you just build it. You just have like that wall there, and they have to shoot behind the wall. You can still have the dig under. But I think mainly that the issue was like that incline.
Yeah, I guess it kind of feels a little more international Survivor than it does American Survivor, where it is just like so brute strength, and maybe that's just what's throwing me off with it.
Yeah, I mean, this might have been, the challenge to counteract with the puzzle.
Fair, yeah, right. Where it's like rather than having a skills-based challenge of like sinking baskets, a puzzle is the way to make this a little more even, because then a tribe that is struggling physically has a catch-up point.
Right. Exactly. All right, Survivor, call us. The next part of the challenge is the log dig under. This has been in Survivor forever. I kind of love. I have a love and a hate for this part of challenges. I like it here because I like that one person has to go through it and they're like doing the chasing of the balls and stuff like that. I like it here. In certain parts of other challenges, it just seems like a nuisance.
It's so dependent on like how big your person you're putting through is. Like as a large person with broad shoulders, I know that like if they say one person, I am not that person. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm like we have those instances where people get stuck going under the log, right? Where they're climbing or they're crawling under and they haven't dug it out enough and they get stuck.
Yep.
Terrifying fear of mine. Hate that thought.
Yeah.
Were you surprised when Julie went through for the Reba tribe instead of Jay?
No, because I feel like Jay is very much stepping back and doesn't feel like a forefront kind of, oh, I'll do this. She wants to do her part for challenges and that's it. Where Julie is like, I want to win these challenges. Like we have that confessional where it's like, we don't have to worry about this if we're winning immunity. So I wasn't surprised. I at first was surprised that Kelly had come under the log because for some reason in my head I was thinking that the person who comes out from the log does the baskets. And I'm like, whoa, are we getting hit by like a woman doing a main part of a challenge and that being basketball? Like what? And I was like, oh no, she's just retrieving.
Yeah. It was an interesting challenge because it's, again, we have to commend them. Like it's a new, different challenge. Yes, it's combining these aspects of previous challenges we've seen, but it's not something we've seen put together this way before.
Yeah.
But that third basket was crazy hard to hit.
It was, but Lulu and Bello hit it, and we have Reba go to Tribal Council. Probably the least interesting one, in my opinion, to see go to Tribal Council, because we've had the build up. All of the pre-challenge was building up Bello and Lulu, and Reba had like a little sprinkling here and there, probably because they get the rest of the edit pretty much. But I just like didn't want to see. I knew they were going to lose, but I didn't want to see them go to Tribal Council. Like this was not interesting for me to like see them strategize.
I was honestly shocked they went to Tribal Council based on the edit leading up to this point. I was like, we spent so much time discussing these other tribal dynamics, so that means that they must not. Boy, was I wrong. My power rankings didn't like how right I was to be wrong. Because let me tell you, someone like Sean doing what Sean did totally messed up my power rankings this week because I correctly predicted exactly how this tribe would do this, right? Where again, as we were talking earlier, right? They decide, hey, let's take a shot at this person we haven't had a chance to take a shot at yet, based on the EW article that was put out yesterday that had covered Jeff Probst's podcast, saying that Sifu, as far as they know, Sifu was the vote going into this tribal council. So it would have been a little interesting. But I don't know. McKenna, please, like, what do we have here?
All right, we're going to Reba, and the only thing of note for this whole scramble round, because it leads to nothing, is Sean being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to every tribal council. And so this is kind of like in Philippines with the dissolve, where Denise goes to Calabao and they lose again, and she loses again. And she's just like, great, I'm now at every tribal council, where Caleb and Emily get the Malcolm treatment of winning a challenge and not having to go to tribal council. Sean has that rundown moment of I'm here again, which causes him to crack, basically. But we have the Reba women being like, you're good, but we are pitching Reba strong in tribal council. We are going to essentially throw you under the bus and that you're leaving, but trust us, Sifu is going home. and then he just breaks. And we basically talked about quitters or people volunteering to leave in episode 1. So if you want to see a little bit more of a deep dive on more of them, go back and check our episode 1 podcast. But I think I want to talk a little bit more in depth on Janu and Sean, where they leave for sort of the same reasons, where it's like, I want to let you guys continue to live your dreams. And I'm there's an obvious boot. Like, I'm the obvious boot. Stephanie, I'm the obvious boot. So Janu steps up and is just like, okay, you know what, you can stay. I'm kind of over it. Sean has been beaten down in this game because he got blindsided in 1 vote and lost every challenge. He's just like, you know what, I'm out. And, Phil and Albert made an amazing point where he's not going home. He's going to Ponderosa. Like, what is going on here? You can't just leave to be like, I want to be with my husband.
Just play the game. That's all I say. Play the game.
If you're not it is similar. Home, that's crazy.
It is similar to Janu, where it's similar and not similar, right? Like, they give kind of the same reasoning for it, but in both cases, they're kind of like masking whatever their true intentions are for the quit.
Yeah.
Because the thing is here, like, Sean didn't seem to be struggling too hard with the environment like Janu was, right? Like, Janu went to Exile, that first iteration of Exile Island and Palau.
She was on the bottom. Cody had just gotten eliminated. One of her best friends in the game. Like, he was on the struggle bus and had been health-wise for a while. Sean was living his life.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're 9 days in. 9 days in. And we have someone quitting. Like, this almost feels more like a Nayanka quit to me. Someone who, like, just is like, nah, I'm done. But, like, could just keep going it out, right? Like, now, granted, Sean, and I will die on this hill, Sean was not in as good of a position as Nayanka was when she quit the game. But it just kind of, like, came out of nowhere. Like I was saying, my power rankings, I think I had Sean at 4 because I felt pretty confident that based on, like, what I was seeing in the edit leading up to this point, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if these Reba women turn on Sifu. And I was right. But then Sean just had to quit the game.
I also it worries me with how Sean portrayed his quit, how you sent it to me in the text, how it's like almost romanticized, where it came across as like not as big of a deal as it should be. Like, us as super fans are outraged, but I feel like the more casual viewer is like, you know what, that's sweet, and they're letting him go, that kind of thing.
The casual viewer who doesn't know that there's a pre-jury trip that they have to go on.
Yeah, exactly. That he's not going. This isn't the challenge. You don't just go home. This is Survivor, and you have Ponderosa. So that is that. That is our take on episode 4. Again, if you want to see us go more in depth, go to episode 1. We are still loving this season, but also now have a little hesitation, or at least on my end, I have a little hesitation moving forward. But if it's anything like, Korong, where we have all those medevacs, we'll just get them out early because we have a potential medevac coming next week. So, you know what?
The way I see it is some of the best seasons in Survivor history have quits in them. Right? We look at Micronesia, we look at Cagayan. Like, these are seasons that are revered by the fandom.
Yeah.
That have quits in them.
True.
Now,
you know what else has a quit in it?
What's that?
Blood versus Water. Where
it does.
We're watching it over on the Patreon. Episode 6, One Man Wrecking Ball. It's not the Colton quit, but it is the swap, and we get to see Kat blow up.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Come join us for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. As always, Phil and Albert, if you have not had a chance to listen to the recap yesterday, it was great. Give it a listen. Next week, Alexa's here without Phil instead. I don't know who is stepping into that one yet, but that'll be great. I actually don't know who's doing the predictions and power rankings this week or when it's happening, but keep your eyes peeled by
ring that bell,
ring that bell, get those notifications so it'll be happening sometime this weekend. And it should be interesting coming off a quit because it kind of
shakes everything up.
how you think about everything.
Because now and then, of course, is on a witch hunt to get who voted for him.
Oh yeah, exactly. We McKenna and I are going to have some prime content next week. And then, of course, become a patron. You get Phil's after show. I'm sure I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm sure he goes over this quit a lot more.
It's in all caps. Like, I hate quits is like the name.
There you go. You have me and McKenna talking Blood versus Water this week. All of our old backlogs there too. You can join the Discord. You can have chats about us with us when people quit.
Celestina and I are covering The Amazing Race. We have some great race content. This season of The Amazing Race is following Survivor in top tier content. So reality TV is back, people, and follow the specialists on Patreon because that's where you get the good shit.
Yeah, and also follow the specialists on TikTok because we're there now too.
Yes, ticking and talking.
Thanks, everyone. It's been a blast. McKenna, take us away.
Yes. See you later, everybody. And we'll catch you next Thursday live at like 7:30, 8 o'clock.